Amen.
And we're back. This time it's for the MUISS Secretary. We've got our candidates Namisha and our current office bearer Jonah here sitting in with us. Again, this is standard procedure at this point. We're just going to be going through with this intro right now. We've got a 5 to 7 minute opening statement from the candidate. Then we'll have questions from our office bearer, and then eventually we'll have questions from the audience. So if you're watching right now, do drop your questions in the comment section, and we will pass it along to Namisha to answer, and then we'll round it off with the candidate. So without further ado, uh, we're going to bring on Namisha now for her to give uh, her opening statement. Oh, hang on, there's a bit of a. All right, take it away, Namisha.
Okay, so hi, I'm Namisha Chabra. I joined Monash in the October intake of last year. And when I joined, there weren't really anything going on, obviously, because the seniors had exams. So we only had one event. And so I knew of MUISS, but I wasn't too sure of it. And that's what kind of sparked the curiosity. And I was really just interested in how they worked and what their work ethic involved. And that is why I joined MUISS this year as a subcommittee member. And I learned that as the job of the secretary, it's not only revolving around arranging and managing meetings, but it also heavily stresses on ensuring efficient communication and coordination amongst all the departments as well as the international students. Time and again, we've been encouraged to keep in touch with the MUSA constitution and just to be aware of our roles. It highlights the responsibilities in the job description of a secretary, which includes managing meetings, keeping things confidential, monthly reports, meeting minutes. And like I mentioned earlier, our job is to ensure that MUISS works in harmony and that all of our departments are in sync, making us more like a bridge between all of them to make sure that things run smoothly. So, why do I think that I'm the right fit for this job? Working for MUISS this year has given me a hands on experience. My department is more of a behind the scenes one where we focus most of our time on writing reports. And therefore, having the semester online may have hindered my experience to a certain level, but it has definitely given me a great exposure and insight on what the job entails. I feel that I'm qualified because of my organizational skills, and I also feel that I can put my biases aside and be a fair intermediary between departments if a conflict is to arise. Moreover, I will do my level best to make sure that all the decisions I make will be in the best interests of all the departments. Now, I'd like to talk about some of the things that I would like to implement or push forward. So, one of the things that I really want to increase is increasing transparency. And this is an initiative that was actually implemented this year by Jonah, the current MUISS secretary, where he implemented the end of semester reports, which is available to everyone. I think that this is a great method and I would love to continue it because it highlights all the crucial information within all the departments of MUISS. And I personally feel that this is a great way for all the international students to feel more aware and feel more comfortable and connected to MUISS. Moving on, one of our most important policies is to follow and respect the Constitution. However, if given the opportunity and the extreme need, I'd like to implement having the country representatives be bounded by MUSA Constitution. Because right now, I feel that there's not enough information about their ties. And I also, this is like, I personally feel that the CROs are more like the middlemen between the country representatives and MUISS. And I'd like to change that because I feel that not being pledged to the Constitution kind of takes away a sense of like professionalism and formality that is important. As I mentioned earlier, my job as a secretary requires me to secure efficiency within MUISS. To comply with that, I would perhaps like to make a change within the ISOs in MUISS as well. So, as far as my knowledge extends, I personally feel that the welfare department in MUISS works more closely with the CROs rather than activities editors, publicity officers. And therefore, I feel that it's almost invalid for them to have to share the same platform of communication. And thus, I feel that having their own separate email would help to promote greater and more effective communication, since a large part of their job is reaching out to international students. And lastly, any role within MUISS centers around international students. And so I would like to add on this feedback system, perhaps like post events, and it could either be virtually or it could be questionnaires, and that could be totally anonymous. This would not only guarantee their participation, but it would also, guide us on how to cater in a more competent way. Finally, the student council works side by side with the student body and the administration to ensure the students' events throughout the year are successful. As a secretary, I will ensure that you have a memorable year, and I would really, really appreciate your vote. If elected, I will continue to fight for the things that are important to the students, no matter how big or small they might be. Thank you.
Hang on, yeah, we might have a. I think Harris is lagging for a bit. Hang on. Right.
Hello, guys. Okay. Sorry. It seems like Harish is having some internet issues. I guess I can take over from here really quickly. What stage are we in? Sorry, I was downstairs eating dinner.
Just finished my speech, so.
Oh, so you just finished your opening speech? Okay, I guess now we can take some questions from the previous office bearers. So, Jonah.
Okay. She covered quite a few points, so I'm trying to rearrange the questions. But okay, all right. First of all, before I ask questions, great speech, Namisha, and you covered quite a few points that I had. But anyway, my first question would be, as obviously you're running for MUISS Secretary for 2021, and if you do get elected, you'll be chosen by the international students, again, to work for the international students. If you were to say, what would you say would be your one mission or vision statement or policy, just one, that you would like to have achieved by the end of your term?
I feel like the little bit that I've seen being with MUISS, I feel like we do not get enough engagement, and that's something that I would really, really want to increase. So I think my biggest mission and vision as a whole would just to be like increased participation and engagement between MUISS and the international students, just so that they feel more comfortable and more welcomed in Monash.
Okay. Next question. In your manifesto, you stated that you plan to enhance member experience by increasing different forms of member interaction during meetings. Do you have a concrete plan that focuses on how exactly you'd increase member interaction during these meetings?
I do not have a concrete plan, but I do want to increase like most outings, just spending more time together just to ensure that there's more transparency and honesty within one another, because at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So the last thing I'd want is to have internal conflicts. And which is why I think having constant meetings is really, really crucial, just so that everyone gets updated on what's happening in each department. And that way we can figure out a solution to move forward together.
Okay. Next question. In your manifesto again, you stated that you plan to improve the accessibility of student resources in the section stated increased methods of support to students in need. What student resources are you referring to, and how exactly do you plan on achieving this?
So this year, because of the whole COVID situation, I didn't really know much that they were giving funds, and maybe that's on my behalf that I wasn't keeping too much in touch with everything. But by that, what I meant was that I would want to make them more aware that there are resources available, whether it's counseling sessions, whether it's just any small thing that they might need, because I didn't know that Monash offered free counseling sessions either. So, I mean, I knew they had it, but I didn't know the extent of it. So that's what I meant. Like, I want them to be aware of everything that we offer, just so that they don't ever have to feel like we lack in any sort of way.
Okay, thank you for the response. Moving on to my favorite part. Next question is constitution-based. So part 13 of the MUSA Constitution states the constitution that governs the MUISS division, i.e. us, and I'm sure you've had a look at it. My first question is, what clauses do you look to rectify or incorporate in your term that will help solidify and govern MUISS efficiently?
What clauses do
you look to incorporate, to bring into the MUISS section of the Constitution?
I think under the entire section 13, which is like just about MUISS, I think every point is very, very clearly stated. And I think if it's just followed as it is going to increase efficiency, because it literally is, it's so straightforward, and it just tells you exactly what you need to do in order to be a good member of MUISS. And I feel like that is really important for us to just give our 100%. So if we abide by it and if we just like stick to it and learn it, then we'd be the best versions of ourselves for the next year.
Okay. Follow-up question. Do you feel that there are any contradicting clause in the MUISS constitution?
Under the MUISS part, maybe not. I personally feel like it's all right. Just like I mentioned earlier, there's one thing that I would like to change, which is the CRO part, simply just to increase the formality aspect of it. Other than that, I personally feel like it's all right.
Okay. Next question. We're still part of the Constitution. Section 97, subsection 1K, where it states the responsibilities and roles of the MUISS Secretary. It says that the office bearer is entitled to obtain access of international students' information when the need arises. How do you plan on obtaining this information?
Maybe from student life department or just the international students part of it, because I do feel like it's important, if anything happens, and just even to keep them updated, that's how we get their emails or their phone numbers. But I also do realize that it's my job to keep that information confidential. I think that is very, very important, that whatever information I obtain, I need to keep it confidential because it's a matter of privacy. And so I plan to obtain it from student life resources, obviously, but then I do understand the responsibility that comes alongside having that information.
Okay, final question on Constitution. When conflict arises between the clauses in the MUISS and MUSA Constitution, which document supersedes and which clause would be in effect?
Sorry?
So when clauses arise between MUISS clause and a MUSA clause, and one says one thing and the other says the other thing, which constitution would supersede, i.e. which clause in which side of the constitution would be used?
If that situation is to occur, I don't think that I'm the only member in MUISS that should make that decision. So I would have my whole team sit down and discuss, and then with the most unbiased view as we can get, I try to be as unbiased as I can and make sure everyone is on the same boat, and we come to a conclusion together, because MUISS is a team. I'm not the only member. So if there is to ever be a clash, it would be a mutual decision that's been made together.
Okay, perfect. Final question from me. In terms of confidentiality, most of the MUISS database is under the secretary and MUISS heads. There are cases where other committee members might need to use the database. So how do you plan on ensuring that data remains confidential, simultaneously being used for the benefit of the students?
Well, in that situation, I think it would depend on what they need it for. Like, I like to give an example. Like, for example, we had to do IBP, and we got all the information in a very confidential manner, yet the outcome was achieved. We did make a group with them, and only we had their information, and it all went by successfully. So that's something that I would like to continue, because that's something you do, and I really appreciate that method, because everything is confidential, but the correct outcome is achieved. And that's exactly how I'd like to follow up with that.
Okay, thank you. No more questions from me. Oh, we can't hear you, Raif.
All right, so sorry about that. Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm no longer Harish, and Harish has had to go away for technical difficulties, so I will be taking over. Thank you, Jonah and Namisha, for that session. We shall now move on to the next session, which is the public Q&A. On to ask the first question. Question by Jesslyn. As MUISS Secretary, you're essentially the bridge between the different positions and the heads. How will you manage a conflict of interest, especially if you're personally connected to the members?
Okay. In that situation, I'd like to firstly start off by saying, yes, everybody in MUISS, like the current party, if we all do get elected, we're all friends. So we all do have like some sort of a personal connection with everyone. Now, if there's a conflict to occur between the heads and any department, I am aware that I'm going to be the middleman here. And I think that the only way that I can make a decision is to look at it with an objective point of view. I cannot allow my personal life to interfere with MUISS, because then that's me not being fair. And I think that it's really, really crucial to do that. So I'd like to be as objective as I can if a situation like that occurs.
All right, thank you, Namisha. On to the next question by Kirit. Are you planning on marrying the Constitution like your predecessor did?
Oh my God. No, Kirat. No.
Sorry about that.
All right, straightforward answer then. Okay, so while we wait, there are no more questions at the moment. So while we wait for more questions to come in, Jonah, do you have any more questions for Namisha?
As of now, no, I have no more questions.
Okay, so for the time being, we'll wait for a few more questions. Or wait for other people to ask questions. All right, we've got one by Kirit here. So Kirit asks, what if a conflict arises between you and someone in MUISS? So
Okay,
what's your response to that?
if that is to happen, I think the most suitable person to go to in the situation would be the heads, because firstly they're two, so I think whatever decision they'd make would be very, very like valid, because they'd have a proper discussion, and I'm sure that they know their power and they know their responsibility, and so they would make the right informed decision. I feel that I would reach out to the heads to help me out and to figure what's going on. At the same time, telling them that it's okay to be unbiased and it's okay to be objective. Just because I'm coming up to you does not mean that you have to favor me. You know, the person is at an equal stance as I am.
All right, thank you, Kirit. So again, now we shall wait for more questions. In the meantime, to all the audience watching, if you do want to check out the candidates' profiles in their manifestos, head on to MUSA's Instagram, as well as the election website. Details there as well on the Instagram page. Now we shall wait for a few more questions. If not, then we can move on to the closing statements. Also, in the meantime, while we wait as well, okay, there we go. Question by Jesslyn. As Jonah can attest, the secretary position entails a lot of paperwork, many different kinds at the same time. How do you intend to balance all of this?
Okay, yes, I can say that yes, secretary position has a lot of paperwork because I've worked with it quite a bit this past few months. And I think the best way to balance all of this is to get the most suitable subcoms. Because I think at the end of the day, you need to be good at delegating your work, because like when you pick subcoms, you can kind of understand like who's going to be good at what. So just picking the right subcoms and understanding their ability to be able to do the paperwork would be how I'd like to balance it. Because I first, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonah, but I think we helped you quite a bit this year. And it's just easier that way when you have subcoms, because it's just like an easier balance.
All right. Jonah, have you got any questions on that topic, perhaps, to ask Namisha?
My only question was, as you've known, as a secretary subcom, we've used different platforms for either meetings or paperwork. Is there any specific platform that you had in mind that would help you if you do get elected and the rest of the office bearers to use for meetings, for paperwork, or for any Excel document that we did?
App called Slack, which is an app that kind of helps us to like organize our paperwork and organize our chats even. So that is something I would try to. I'm personally very new at it too, so I would really try to learn that, because as far as I know, it's very organized. And with MUISS, there's not just like one announcement message. There's always like a spam of messages, and so just having that be organized and easy to find is something that I would try to implement. But I would like to be more, be more certain about that first before I implement that.
Okay, next question. Oh, Kirat's question, can go ahead.
Yep, we've got a question from Kirat. How are you planning on balancing between your social life, academics, and MUISS? I know subcoms will help you out, but what is your take on your social life?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest now. Because of Corona, all of us are gone. So when we do come back, and if we do get elected, the crave for wanting to go out and have a fun social life is going to be so much more than it would have been if this pandemic didn't occur. But I think at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to prioritizing what's important. So yes, I would want a social life, obviously, but then at the same time, if I have a meeting or if I have some paperwork due, I know that that's my priority at the end of the day because I signed up for this. So I can't complain because I chose this for myself. So I really cannot complain. And it is my priority over social life. Obviously, my academics come first and then MUISS and then my social life. So I don't think I have the right to crib about it at the end. And yes, MUISS will be my priority over my social life, definitely.
All right, thank you, Namisha. We'll wait some more. We'll give.
I have a question.
Oh yes, Jonah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Namisha. You said that if you do get elected, you plan on changing the structure of a few roles and delegated emails in the sense that the welfare ISO department and CRO. How do you plan on convincing other members in your team to be in favor of a mild structural change, and how would you go about doing it?
Okay, so the part of the ISOs, I think that they would agree because it's almost like this is my personal opinion. I personally feel that the welfare department especially should have like some sort of privacy, considering that again they reach out to international students for sensitive topics, and I feel like if somebody reaches out to them via email, other departments can see that too, and I don't think that's appropriate in my opinion. And so I would like to sit with everybody down, lay out my points, and tell them why I feel that this is the right thing to do. And if they don't agree with it, then it doesn't have to change. It's just that is my opinion, and I would like to inform them about it. But then it's like I said earlier, it's always going to be a mutual decision. It's not just my team. So yeah.
All right,
that answers my question.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next question here from Garen Leong. From your point of view as secretary, which is more important, the alignment of information to the actual source or the better presentation of information to others?
I think both are equally important. Just knowing what I'm not sure if I got the question correctly, so just correct me if you feel so. But I think that both of them are equally as important because knowing where your information comes from, the reliability, the validity of it is very important. But it's also equally important to present it in the right manner to make sure that it's understood and then ask for the right feedback as well. So I think it's a whole circle and that it all has to be given equal amount of importance. Because a mishap in one step is going to cause disturbance to the whole cycle. So I think they're all equally important.
I see. All right. Garen, if you have a follow-up question, feel free to send it. If not, we'll move on to the next question by Balsam. How would you proceed if you feel like one of your team members aren't doing their job well? And how would you come to an objective decision in such a situation?
Okay, so if I feel that someone's not doing their job, I don't think any part of that is subjective or objective. It is obvious already that, okay, this person is not doing their job, and that's it. Like, I think we can give them warnings if I'm not wrong, and that is something that I would proceed with because I know that MUISS is a big commitment and you have to give your time and effort to MUISS. So if you're not doing your job, why did you sign up? Then maybe if you have other priorities apart from your academics that are not valid enough, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. And I would give them a warning, definitely. And it would be objective. Even if that person is my friend, I think he or she would definitely need a warning that you're not doing your job correctly and that you're not putting in enough effort, honestly.
All right. Thank you, Namisha. So that's it for our questions.
I have one question.
Okay, yes, Jonah, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
No, by all means, go ahead, yes.
All right. Before I move on to the question, I'd like to just clarify a statement. In your manifesto, Namisha, you mentioned that you'd like to improve student engagement in elections. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. So as MUISS Secretary, you'll be part of the election committee where all secretaries of respective divisions and the General Secretary and President are present. How do you plan on using this committee to increase the student engagement? And if so, how?
Okay, when I said I wanted to increase student engagement in the elections, I was not thinking of it from the election committee point of view. It was more as like the points I mentioned earlier, increasing transparency, increasing engagement. If they feel more connected and more involved, they're going to want to vote because they know that their decision has an impact on them because they feel involved to begin with. So just that feeling of involvement and connection is something that I really want to stress on. And I feel like if they feel that way about MUISS, they're automatically going to want to vote because it affects them too. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
All right, Jonah, are you happy with that answer?
Yes,
Oh.
satisfied.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Namisha. Thank you, Jonah. We've got another question by Jesslyn. The question asks, if one day you find that your heads aren't doing their job right, how would you approach the situation?
To be very honest with you, I wouldn't know how to open. I'm so sorry. Yeah, if that situation was to occur, I wouldn't know how to handle it, to be very honest with you. So I think I would approach Jonah or Jess, or like the current heads or the current secretary, just to like guide me in the right direction because I don't want to make a rush decision and not have it be the right thing. You know, I don't want anyone's blame on my head. And so I would ask the seniors to just guide me into the right direction. And then whatever they say, I will respectfully follow that.
All right. Thank you, Namisha. We've got another question by Garen Leong again. He asks, how would you work with the General Secretary on the coordination of constitution between MUSA and MUISS?
Okay, so another thing that I would really like to implement this year, if I do win, is the collaboration between MUSA and MUISS. So now, if we're working together a lot of the times, then I feel like it will come up in conversation about the constitution and everything like that. So I feel like just kind of understanding both point of views and having a broader mind when discussing so. So when you have a broader mind and you're accepting to what the other person is saying and vice versa, you can kind of come to a conclusion and it increases the coordination as well because you're ready to accept and listen. And so I feel if I do win and the general secretary from that side and we just work together and just listen to each other and be open-minded about it, I think we can do pretty well with the constitution.
Perhaps to add on to that question or to ask that question again, is there anything specific that you would do instead of perhaps just working with the General Secretary? Is there any ideas you have and so on?
Yes, I would like to. I'm pretty sure other people have mentioned this as well because we have discussed this. And a lot of the times, MUSA and MUISS want to have the same event. And there's often clashes. And so the crowd kind of becomes 50-50. And just to have better, more participation, like I said, engagement, it doesn't have to limit to international students. If it's a collaboration, everybody's more than welcome to join. And that is something I feel like I would really like to increase just so that people know each other more, they're more engaging with one another, there's higher participation. And I think that would lead to a better outcome for both MUSA and MUISS.
I see. So that was more a coordination between MUSA and MUISS. How about specifically to the Constitution?
To be honest, I don't have anything in mind for the Constitution. If ever there's a need to have a certain discussion on it, like I said earlier, I would be open and really objective about it and be willing to accept, provided it's the same response.
All right. Thank you, Namisha.
Handle the situation. Yeah.
All right, then. That seems to be all the questions. We do have 2 minutes left. So if anybody does want to ask more questions, we shall be waiting. To fill in the the awkward silence, just in case, there will be one more debate for the rest of the day. That is the heads of MUISS debates, and that will be starting at approximately 8:15 later. Moving on as well, a quick reminder for anyone who's just tuning in, if you do want to check out details on the candidates, what their profiles are, what their manifestos are, head on over to MUSA's official Instagram page, as well as the MUSA election website under the link tree. Yep, here we go. Jess is also calling for everyone to come in and sit in for the Heads of MUISS session, starting again at 8:15 later. All right, give that another 30 seconds for any questions to come in. If not, we'll move on to the closing statements. Jonah, any last minute questions to ask Namisha?
I think she's exhausted most of the points, and I've asked most of the questions.
All right.
Yeah, if not all, I asked all my questions. Yeah, so I'm good.
Okay then, there seems to be no more questions. We shall move on to the closing statements. Namisha, you have the floor.
So, for my closing speech, I'd just like to say that I know writing reports and the other job descriptions of a secretary may seem like a boring job to most people, but I personally love the format, organization, and the structure that it brings to MUISS. I believe that my determination and passion will provide an enthusiastic and a joyful year ahead. As secretary, it will be my duty to ensure that the international students in Monash feel comfortable, connected, and welcome. And so I'm looking forward to having a great year ahead. Please vote for me.
All right, thank you, Namisha. This
Thank
ends
you.
the session for today, the MUISS Secretary position for the MUSA 20 debates. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks to
Thank you.
Jonah again.
Thank
Thanks to
you.
Namisha.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.